Have you ever met someone and felt an instant connection, as if fate or destiny had orchestrated the encounter? It's like a deep, unexplainable bond that transcends logic, speaking directly to your soul. Maybe it was a friend, a partner, or even a stranger, yet somehow, your energy aligned, and it felt like it was meant to happen. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, believed that these connections are no accident. He argued that they are reflections of our unconscious mind, guiding us toward profound transformation. But what if these powerful connections weren't just spiritual or coincidental? What if they were grounded in psychology? In today's video, we're diving deep into the concept of soul alignment and exploring how these encounters are rooted in Jung's theories of synchronicity and energy resonance. Whether it's love, friendship, or personal growth, these connections can change the course of our lives. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll have the tools to recognize and navigate these life-altering connections in your own journey. 1. Synchronicity and the unconscious mind. Have you ever encountered someone and felt like your meeting was anything but random? Perhaps, upon meeting them, you experienced a deep sense of familiarity, something beyond just recognition. In those moments, it often feels as if destiny itself has orchestrated the event. Carl Jung, one of the most influential figures in psychology, explored this phenomenon in his theory of synchronicity. He described it as a meaningful coincidence where two events occur in a way that seems linked by more than just chance. Jung's concept of synchronicity suggests that these coincidences are often moments when our unconscious mind is in sync with external events. We think of the world around us as a series of independent actions and occurrences. Yet Jung believed that the unconscious realm, often seen as chaotic and beyond our direct understanding, is a structured space. It is filled with universal images and patterns, or archetypes, inherited from the collective unconscious. These archetypes, such as the shadow, the animus, the anima, or the hero, are not just theoretical concepts, they are deeply embedded in our psyche and shape how we perceive and interact with the world. When we meet someone whose personal energy aligns with one of these archetypes, we feel an immediate connection. It's as though our psyche is recognizing something deeply familiar in the other person, activating a pull that goes beyond conscious awareness. This is where the experience feels inevitable, even though we may not fully understand it in logical terms. What Jung was suggesting is that, far from being random or purely accidental, these encounters are meaningful on a profound psychological level. They are shaped by something much greater than mere chance, often linked to internal shifts or psychological patterns that are playing out in our lives. This deep connection can be particularly transformative because, when two individuals align on such a deep unconscious level, it opens up possibilities for emotional and psychological growth. These relationships are not just fleeting moments but represent key moments in the evolution of our unconscious psyche. The unconscious mind is always seeking to bring things to the surface that we have yet to confront or integrate. And sometimes, the universe provides us with the perfect mirror in the form of another person. 2. Energy alignment, how the body knows before the mind. When two individuals experience a profound soul connection, it's not just the mind that recognizes the other person. The body itself reacts to this alignment, often before we consciously understand what is happening. Neuroscience has begun to support Jung's ideas about energy resonance through a phenomenon known as limbic mirroring. This process involves our nervous system picking up on subtle nonverbal cues, like tone of voice, posture, gaze, and even facial expressions, that allow us to emotionally synchronize with someone else's internal state. Imagine meeting someone for the first time, and without speaking a word, you feel an overwhelming sense of connection. Your body might experience sensations like warmth, calmness, or even a heightened sense of alertness. This reaction is the result of your body tuning into theirs, aligning emotionally before your conscious mind can fully process the connection. This is not just a metaphor, it's the neurological wiring of human beings, which allows us to connect with one another on a visceral level. This alignment is often experienced as a magnetic force between two people. You may feel as though you are drawn toward them, even if you cannot explain why. This initial attraction is more than just surface-level chemistry, it is an emotional resonance that occurs within the deeper layers of our nervous system. Studies in interpersonal neurobiology suggest that our brains are wired for emotional resonance, especially in close relationships. This shared emotional synchronization creates a sense of unity. A feeling that the connection between you and the other person is beyond mere happenstance. This energetic alignment, while often felt initially as a sense of joy, excitement, or calm, can also bring discomfort or even anxiety, especially if the connection reveals aspects of ourselves that we've been repressing. The body's instinctive reaction to align with another can sometimes stir up old traumas or unresolved emotions. This is one of the complexities of deep soul connections. They can be both healing and challenging in equal measure. 3. Authentic and challenging connections, transformative bonds. When the energy of two souls aligns, it doesn't always result in a peaceful, harmonious experience. While some connections may feel blissful and comforting, others can be deeply unsettling. This is because these connections often bypass the superficial aspects of our personalities, speaking directly to our authentic selves. As a result, they can stir up unresolved emotions or past traumas that we've long kept buried. The intensity of these connections can trigger growth, but it can also be disorienting. These deep, challenging connections are often what Jung referred to as catalysts for individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming our true selves. The individuation process requires us to confront our shadow, those parts of ourselves that we've repressed or denied. These parts of our psyche often manifest in the form of intense feelings or interactions with others. The people who come into our lives and stir up these emotions may seem difficult, confrontational, or even painful, but they often play a pivotal role in helping us become whole. For example, consider a relationship where one person triggers feelings of insecurity, jealousy, or anger. At first glance, this may seem like a toxic or challenging connection. However, when we delve deeper, we realize that these emotions are reflecting aspects of ourselves that we have not fully integrated. Perhaps the jealousy stems from feelings of inadequacy or fear of abandonment. In this case, the relationship is serving as a mirror, helping us recognize these hidden aspects of ourselves so we can work through them and grow. These connections are not necessarily meant to be permanent. Jung emphasized that the role of such intense relationships is to initiate transformation, not necessarily to provide comfort. Once the lesson has been learned and the growth process has begun, the connection may no longer serve the same purpose. In fact, clinging to relationships after they've fulfilled their transformative role can stunt personal development. 4. The shadow and emotional healing. Jung's theory of the shadow is central to understanding the depth of soul connections. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we have rejected, denied, or repressed. These traits might be deemed undesirable by our conscious mind, so we push them into the unconscious. However, this process of repression doesn't make them go away, it merely hides them from view. The shadow is not inherently negative, but it contains aspects of our personality that are undeveloped, misunderstood, or unacknowledged. In relationships, our shadow often emerges in ways that challenge us to confront these repressed aspects of ourselves. For example, you might encounter someone who, on the surface, triggers a negative emotional reaction in you, such as anger or frustration. The initial reaction might be to blame them for the way you feel. However, upon deeper reflection, you may realize that their behavior is activating something within you that you have been avoiding, perhaps feelings of unworthiness or fear of vulnerability. In this way, the relationship is not merely a mirror of the other person, it is also a mirror of your own unresolved issues. By engaging with our shadow and the emotional reactions it generates, we can begin the process of shadow work, a form of self-exploration that involves embracing the aspects of ourselves that we've long rejected. This process is essential for personal growth because it leads to a more complete, integrated sense of self. As we embrace our shadow, we stop projecting our unhealed wounds onto others and start taking responsibility for our emotional triggers. 5. The role of shadow work in deep connections. Shadow work is not just an abstract psychological concept, it is an essential part of personal growth, particularly in the context of deep, soul-aligned connections. As we become more aware of our own shadow, we begin to realize that many of our relationships are reflections of what we need to work on within ourselves. Rather than seeking to change or blame others, we are called to look inward and address the wounds that are being triggered. For example, if you find yourself drawn to relationships that are emotionally volatile or unstable, it might be an indication that you have unresolved issues within yourself that need to be healed. Perhaps you fear abandonment, so you unconsciously attract people who are emotionally unavailable. Recognizing this pattern is the first step in healing, rather than continuing to seek out relationships that reinforce these fears. You can start to work on strengthening your own sense of self-worth and emotional stability. As we integrate our shadow, we become more authentic in our relationships. Instead of engaging in superficial connections that only reflect a facade, we begin to attract relationships that are based on mutual understanding, respect, and emotional maturity. The more we heal within, the more our energy aligns with others who are also on their own path of growth and self-realization. This leads to healthier, more fulfilling relationships, ones that are based on authenticity and emotional depth rather than dependency or need. 6. Catalysts for personal growth. In Jungian psychology, not all relationships are meant to last. Some relationships serve a critical function. They act as catalysts for personal transformation. These connections come into our lives at crucial moments when we are ready for growth but may not yet realize the depth of change that's needed. Often, these individuals appear in our lives when we are at a crossroads, or when we're facing significant emotional, psychological, or spiritual challenges. These relationships, whether they are romantic, familial, or friendships, serve as mirrors, revealing aspects of ourselves that we may have ignored or repressed. They reflect back to us our unconscious fears, desires, and weaknesses, triggering deep introspection. This is often why such relationships can feel intense, emotionally and psychologically, because they bring hidden parts of our identity into the light. Take, for instance, a relationship that feels emotionally overwhelming. You might feel as though you are constantly walking on a tightrope, struggling with the intensity of the bond. It's easy to assume that such a relationship is meant to be permanent, that the intense emotions should last forever. However, in many cases, this intensity is a sign that the relationship is fulfilling its true purpose, to activate the unconscious patterns that need to be addressed in order for you to grow. These relationships are not about staying comfortable or keeping things easy, they are about triggering change, no matter how challenging it may be. Jung's concept of individuation is central to understanding these types of relationships. Individuation is the process of becoming the person you are meant to be, integrating all the aspects of your personality, including those parts you may have avoided or suppressed. In this process, relationships often act as mirrors that help us reflect and confront the parts of ourselves that need healing. This process might involve facing the shadow, healing unresolved emotional wounds, and integrating aspects of the self that we may have been ashamed of. When we engage in this type of growth, we move closer to becoming our authentic selves. 7. The shadow and emotional healing. As we deepen our understanding of soul connections, it's essential to bring attention to the concept of shadow work, a core idea within Jungian psychology. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we suppress or reject because they are uncomfortable, painful, or deemed undesirable. These repressed aspects of our personality often emerge in our relationships with others, especially in emotionally intense or deep connections. When we meet someone who reflects our shadow, they may trigger difficult emotions. These emotions can include anger, jealousy, fear, or self-doubt, feelings that we may not even fully understand. For example, you might feel a strong aversion to someone because their traits remind you of your own fears or insecurities. This is where shadow work begins. Instead of simply dismissing the other person or labeling them as toxic, you are encouraged to look within and explore why these emotions are surfacing in the first place. In doing so, we engage in a process of self-reflection, where we examine the beliefs, wounds, or unresolved issues within us that are being triggered. Maybe the anger you feel toward a friend or partner reflects deep-seated fears about betrayal or abandonment. Or perhaps the jealousy you feel arises from your own sense of inadequacy or a fear of losing control. These feelings are not merely the other person's fault, they are signals from our unconscious mind, pointing out unresolved areas that need attention. Engaging with the shadow allows us to heal. It involves confronting the parts of ourselves that we have long buried and integrating them into our conscious identity. Shadow work is not an easy task. It requires vulnerability and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. However, when we are able to confront and integrate these aspects, we become whole, and our relationships shift accordingly. We no longer project our unresolved issues onto others but rather accept them as part of our own psyche. This allows for deeper, more authentic connections with those around us. 8. The role of shadow work in deep connections. The idea of shadow work is not just abstract theory but an essential part of navigating deep soul connections. Relationships that trigger emotional discomfort are not inherently negative. Rather, they serve as opportunities to do the deep emotional work necessary for healing and growth. These relationships highlight the parts of ourselves that are still unresolved, and they challenge us to face them head-on. Shadow work doesn't just involve recognizing negative emotions, it also requires us to embrace the positive qualities that we've repressed. For example, many people suppress their sense of creativity or self-worth because of past experiences or societal conditioning. Through shadow work, these neglected traits can be brought to light and integrated, leading to greater self-empowerment. When we enter into relationships with the awareness that they will reflect our inner world, we begin to understand that each connection serves a purpose. Some relationships are here to challenge us to grow, while others serve to confirm our progress along the path of individuation. As we heal and integrate the shadow, we attract relationships that are healthier and more aligned with our true selves. 9. Letting go, the paradox of attachment. As we discussed earlier, not all soul connections are meant to last. One of the most challenging aspects of these relationships is knowing when to let go. Jung often emphasized that deep relationships are not about holding on to someone out of fear or nostalgia, but about honoring the natural cycle of growth and transformation. The process of letting go is an important step in this cycle, and it is often misunderstood as a failure or loss. When we encounter a profound soul connection, it's easy to believe that it should last forever. We associate depth with permanence, thinking that if a connection feels powerful, it must be eternal. However, Jung reminded us that depth does not always equal destiny. Many relationships, especially those that feel emotionally intense, are not meant to remain constant. Their role is to catalyze transformation and growth. Consider the example of someone who has been in an emotionally intense relationship that no longer feels fulfilling. They might feel conflicted about ending the relationship, especially if there are still strong emotions involved. Yet, when we cling to a relationship past its purpose, we prevent ourselves from evolving. Letting go of a connection, whether it's romantic, platonic, or familial, can be an act of integrity. It doesn't mean betraying love, it means honoring its cycle and allowing both individuals to continue their personal journeys. This process of letting go is vital for personal growth. It's a recognition that our identity is not defined by our relationships, but rather by our ability to grow and evolve independently. Holding on to relationships that have fulfilled their purpose can prevent us from moving forward and creating space for new connections that align with who we are becoming. 10. Self-concept clarity, attracting healthier relationships. The foundation of healthy, meaningful relationships begins with self-concept clarity, a clear and stable sense of who we are. Jung's theory suggests that we are always drawn to individuals who reflect aspects of ourselves, whether those aspects are conscious or unconscious. If we have unresolved emotional wounds or an unclear sense of self, we are likely to attract relationships that reflect these inner struggles. Studies in positive psychology support this idea. Research has shown that individuals with high self-concept clarity tend to form more secure, Healthy relationships. They are less likely to rely on external validation to feel good about themselves and are more likely to engage in relationships that promote mutual respect and emotional maturity. In other words, when we are comfortable and secure within ourselves, we naturally attract relationships that mirror that sense of stability and emotional health. On the other hand, if we are uncertain about who we are or are carrying unresolved emotional baggage, we may find ourselves repeatedly drawn to unhealthy or codependent relationships. For example, someone who has low self-esteem might attract a partner who reinforces those feelings of inadequacy. These relationships can feel powerful but are ultimately unsustainable, because they are rooted in emotional need rather than mutual respect and support. Self-concept clarity is not just about knowing who you are but also about accepting yourself fully, including your flaws and weaknesses. Once we embrace our authentic selves and heal the emotional wounds that have held us back, we become more capable of forming meaningful, supportive connections with others. 11. Aligning with your true self, attracting authentic connections. When we embark on the journey of self-discovery and personal growth, we eventually reach a point where we no longer chase relationships out of fear or need. Instead, we begin to attract relationships that resonate with our true selves. This shift happens when we become emotionally mature and stop seeking validation from others. Instead of constantly searching for someone to complete us, we focus on becoming whole within ourselves. This internal shift is incredibly powerful because it aligns our energy with what we truly want in relationships. Once we stop chasing love and approval, we begin to attract people who reflect the energy we are putting out into the world. These relationships are based on mutual respect, emotional support, and growth, rather than dependency or manipulation. It's important to note that this process isn't about giving up on love or relationships. It's about letting go of the desperate need for them and allowing them to come naturally. As you become more aligned with your true self, the right people will come into your life at the right time. This is not about passively waiting for love to find you, but about actively engaging in your own growth and healing. 12. The role of outer events in reflecting inner states. Carl Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This statement speaks to the profound connection between our inner psychological states and the external world we experience. According to Jung, outer events often reflect our inner states, acting as mirrors of what is happening in our unconscious minds. If you find yourself in a situation where everything seems aligned or falling into place, it's not just chance, it's a manifestation of internal psychological shifts. When we are unconsciously carrying unresolved issues, those issues often play out in our external relationships. For example, if we harbor deep fears of unworthiness or rejection, we might attract relationships that reflect those fears. These encounters are not merely random, they are opportunities to confront the unconscious aspects of ourselves that still need healing. In a way, the people we meet and the relationships we form are reflections of our inner world. Our external life, with all its ups and downs, mirrors the state of our unconscious mind. This reflection occurs not only in relationships but also in the events we encounter. For instance, if we are in a phase of growth and healing, we may start to attract experiences that challenge us to step outside of our comfort zones. These situations might feel intense, but they push us toward personal transformation. Understanding this dynamic can be empowering because it shifts the focus from feeling like a victim of circumstances to recognizing that we have the power to create change from within. By becoming more conscious of our internal states and working through unresolved emotional wounds, we begin to align our inner world with our external experiences. This alignment makes it possible to attract the kinds of relationships and experiences that truly serve our growth, rather than repeating old patterns that hold us back. 13. Emotional clarity breeds connection. One of the most profound insights Jung offers is the importance of emotional clarity in forming lasting, healthy relationships. Self-concept clarity, a clear, stable understanding of who we are, is essential for attracting relationships that are based on mutual respect and understanding, rather than dependency. When we are clear about our own emotional needs, desires, and boundaries, we become more capable of connecting with others in a meaningful way. Research in positive psychology supports this idea. Studies show that individuals with a high level of self-concept clarity are more likely to form secure, healthy relationships. They are less prone to relying on others for validation. And they don't fall into patterns of codependency or unhealthy attachment. These individuals are more likely to engage in relationships that promote emotional growth and support, rather than relationships that are based on fear, insecurity, or emotional need. This emotional clarity comes from a deep understanding of oneself, which is cultivated through self-reflection, healing, and personal growth. When we stop seeking external validation and instead look inward to strengthen our own sense of self-worth, we begin to attract relationships that are aligned with our true essence. This doesn't mean that these relationships will always be easy or free of challenges, but they will be authentic, supportive, and rooted in mutual understanding and growth. When two people are emotionally clear and whole, their connection is not based on need or dependency but on mutual elevation. These relationships become a source of strength, healing, and personal development, allowing both individuals to thrive. As we've explored in today's video, the idea that the energy of two souls can align goes far beyond poetic sentiment or random chance. Soul connections, rooted in psychological and emotional resonance, are powerful forces that can lead to deep personal transformation. Whether they bring joy, challenge, or discomfort, these connections serve as mirrors of our unconscious mind, helping us confront hidden parts of ourselves and evolve into the people we are meant to become. By embracing the concepts of synchronicity, shadow work, and emotional clarity, we can better understand the profound impact that these connections can have on our lives. These relationships are not just about love or companionship, they are opportunities for growth, healing, and individuation. As we become more aligned with our true selves, we begin to attract relationships that reflect our deepest desires, values, and emotional needs. So, what can you take away from this? If you've ever encountered a soul connection that felt deeper than chance, remember that it was likely no accident. These encounters are here to teach us valuable lessons, reflect our inner world, and help us grow. The key is to approach them with awareness, embracing the challenges they bring, and using them as catalysts for transformation. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a connection so powerful that it felt destined? Do you believe that relationships mirror our inner states? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences and insights. And if you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more deep insights into the mysteries of the unconscious and soul connections. Remember, when the energy of two souls aligns, no force can keep them apart, but that alignment always begins within. Keep growing, keep